Yes, indeed, folks, the illusion of choice. Look at my glass. My glass is amazing. Give it a lick and then be taken to hospital. Right, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about a subject that a listener has come up with. This is a cool idea. So, I was complaining about the lack of variety in single-tier raid dungeons. They're talking about the idea that raids don't work in a single-tier environment if it's only one raid per tier. Now, that's the definition of single-tier right there. At least that's the one I came up with. I don't care about anyone else's definition. Quiet, you. So, how would you change that? Well, there's a compromise. And this guy kind of hit the nail on the head. I'd like to talk about this a little bit. It's from Dregsy, also known as Darniel, in the chat room. And he says this: TB, this is my first time listening live in 5 years. Wow, welcome to the show. What a show we had for you today. Hopefully you will come back and join in the lively chat community, or the lively hat community. Whichever the case. Right, so he says this: although I'm worried by the people in the chat room, yes, I'm sure you are. Anyway, the illusion of choice, I wanted to give an idea for raids and hear people's thoughts. Think of the Black Temple raid in BC. We all remember that. The 10th start as we went through the pipes opened by Vash, and we snuck into the Citadel to hunt down the dark being that was Illidan. But what if we had a choice of entrance to make the story for ourselves? Perhaps it would add a third degree of raiding. For instance, instead of sneaking through the pipes, you could do a full frontal breach through the gates, and the bosses would all involve an assault with NPC characters around you, fighting to take control of the courtyards. Hard modes could be various defense systems, such as archers, tar pools, and similar fires to avoid. You go via the battlements, or go from a higher point and sneak past sentry-type bosses. This is all based around a fortress castle-type dungeon, like Ulduar, ICC, or the Black Temple. But what's your opinion of having various routes into a raid towards the final set of bosses? You can choose and vary with the raid from week to week. Also, a shout out to Shakam on Shatar EU for being the best mate for many a year. That's from Dregsy or Darnell. I like the idea of varying up the raid, let me put it that way. I mean, personally, I wouldn't make it so gimmicky per se. I understand why you would, but I would make it a little, just less gimmicky. Think about it this way. What happens if you have a instance with a set number of bosses in, but you only do certain ones every time? What happens if you have an instance, let's have a thing, like this? I mean, even if you just did it this way, this would kind of change things up. So, you've got an instance which is 6 bosses, and they are arranged in this configuration. Firstly, you got your first boss. You always have to kill this guy. At which point you have a branching path. You have to choose one way or the other, and it's a choice that you have to make at that point. Now, you'll be given information as to what you might find down there, and of course you can use the system in order to have a look and see what loot is available. By the system, of course, I mean anything. Use any mod, anything like Wowhead, something like that. So, you do that. You pick your choice, and then you have 2 bosses from that wing, quote-unquote. The other wing, at that point, for some contrived reason, becomes closed off. Maybe, I don't know, I can't think of a reason. Maybe it caves in or some nonsense like that. I mean, for God's sake, everyone dies in a raid instance on a weekly basis. You can cave in half the instance. It's not going to make a difference. It'll be back the way it was next week. So do that. Make the choice. Make it timed to really annoy people. Make the choice and then go through there and then fight a final boss one way or the other. Now, that means that you'll fight 4 out of 6 bosses. Now, you could also vary it up perhaps by giving an opportunity to switch paths. The problem you're going to have with a system like this is that, well, there's 2 problems. First thing is this. Loot. If you have different loot for each bosses, you're going to get a bit of a battle, a bit of a fight between the 2 wings, per se, in your guild. You're going to have some people who are going to go for one of them, some people are going to go for the other, simply because, hey, loot is there, blah, blah, blah. Which I know, I mean, I understand, that makes sense. Now, the problem is, if you try and resolve that by giving them a shared loot table, then people will take the path of least resistance. They'll go for the boss that is easiest. So, you run into a bit of a catch-22 there. If you want to try and fix the idea that your guild is going to be split in half, wanting to go one way or the other, then you've got to share the loot system. But you can't share the loot system because then there is no choice. The choice disappears. It becomes path of least resistance. I would personally take the guild drama of the choice over the idea that you could just go for the easiest boss and completely negate those other bosses. I think the problem is with that as well, that you go into a development cycle thinking, we want to make the most complete, time-consuming experience possible to keep people going, keep people subscribed till the next raid. Which makes sense, honestly. I don't blame them for that at all. But you got to look at the big picture, and the big picture, ladies and gentlemen, is quite simply this. If I get sick of a raid in a month, as opposed to sick of a raid in 2 months, then it doesn't matter if I'm fighting 10 bosses or 2. You can extend the lifespan of a raid dungeon by giving me multiple ways to do it. I like to see it happen. Choose your own adventure in a raid dungeon. Why not? My name is Total Biscuit. You've been listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. Thank you ever so much for listening. Go check out the rest of the shows on CynicalBrit.com. Daily gaming shows, videos. I've got Shoutcraft coming up later, ladies and gents, in an hour and a half. Go check it out on live stream. Yes, indeed. tinyurl.com/shoutcraft for that. I'd like to see as many of you as possible in the live chat room for that one. Watch the live video. I can guarantee you it will be a fantastic experience for all of you. I'll give a couple of shout-outs before the end of the show. Send me them via the chat room or email me, themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. Or tweet me if you so desire on Twitter. That's @TotalBiscuit. Only a couple of minutes, folks. I don't have a lot of time left. In fact, we've run over time already. Too much of that retarded horse, as far as I'm concerned. It's terrifying, isn't it? So, I've got a couple of shout-outs here, and I will make a start with them right now. I'll get myself back into the chat room, because somehow I've managed to drop out of it. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. Now, the first shout-out has to go out to Drewby once again. Go check out his video. tinyurl.com/thegrind3trailer. That's tinyurl.com/thegrind3trailer. Go do it right now. Go and have a look at it. Watch it after the show. Also, hi to Nagranol, who has shown his beardy face in the chat room. And directly below him is Gnomewise, who looks like a slightly less scary version of Nagranol. Terrifying, really, isn't it? Yes, they could have been separated at birth. Yes, indeed. Right, shout out to Rawcast. Yes, indeed. The Rawcast Show. And to Bound on US Staggerhelm. Yes, indeed. They have down Syndragoza, which I must say is something we haven't managed to do. Then again, we barely raided. I give a shout out as well to Jason from Insidia.com. There you go, shout out for you. He is the guy that helped us out in the first month with the web hosting solution. So thank you very much to Jason. Go check out his work on Insidia.com. It is absolutely fantastic. Oh, more shout-outs here. One to Spivey, or indeed from Spivey. TB, you arrogant, elitist, black-hearted son of a cleft-hoof salesman. I wasn't aware there was a market for cleft-hoof. A shout to Captain Dan and the Scurvy crew, because Ship to Ship is the perfect background music for the gunship battle. I would have to agree with that. I don't think there's a lot of argument to be had there. Shout-out to the Cynical Chat, which is complete win, and a shout-out to the most epic of the ugly mounts in WoW right now, that retarded horse. That's from Sephiric. Yes, indeed, you can have it. You can have it indeed. What else have we got? Where's that chat room? It's disappeared. Oh, God. Shout out to thegreedygoblin.blogspot.com, plugging his stuff. I believe, if I remember correctly, that is a fellow involved in Casticlism. Yes, Casticlism, which is a new podcast by Thunderer and Co. You might remember that we wanted to get Thunderer in to do Pug. That was before WoW Radio dissolved. He's doing his own thing now. Go check it out, Casticlism. It's easy enough, just go and Google it. There's not an awful lot of Casticlism there. A shout out to Striped Socks on Daggerspine. Let Us Down, Putri Hard Mode. That's from Jera Gathiel. A shout out because it's a shout out from Zelathalus. Yes, there you go, you can have it. A shout out to Hope and Despair, who can't make the video chat today. And a shout out to Deadly Poet Society on Emerald Dream EU. And to Cheese, that's from B. Woodward. Right, how about done, ladies and gents? Thank you very much for having a look at the show today. If you're new to the show, go check out the archives on iTunes or on cynicalbrit.com. Click the shows button and you'll be directed to downloads for all of that stuff. And go watch my video if you haven't already. Go have a look at it. YouTube.com/TotalHalibut. Everyone else seems to have looked at it by this point. You wouldn't want to miss out. You wouldn't want to be unique. No, indeed not. And don't buy that retarded horse, ladies and gentlemen. And don't let your friends do it either. Friends, do not let friends buy that retarded horse. Thank you for listening. I'll see you on Shoutcraft tonight. Goodbye.